the Kiwi Rocket. Today we have Dr. Peter McCullough from the McCullough Foundation. He's a cardiologist, internist and epidemiologist with a massive publishing history in science, cardiorenal medicine, COVID-19, early treatments, effects on vaccinations, epidemiology, the bird flu. And today he's going to talk about why the McCullough Foundation has a report that states that 81,000 physicians, scientists, and members of the public are concerned about the mRNA vaccines and think they should be halted. Hi, Dr. McCullough, how are you today?
Joe, it's great to be back on the rocket. We have so much to talk about. In fact, it's a rocket full of information, announcements, so much news. Let's get after it.
Great. So you've just released this report and it looks very damning. I see that it covers a very broad range of areas. It covers lots of geographical areas, lots of medical areas. It also ties into your autopsy paper, which shows a 79% death rate from a coroner's reports that you had struggled to get published. So could you tell us a little bit more about this report?
The world needed a synthesis of where we are with respect to calls for the COVID-19 vaccines, which have been in worldwide use for 4 years now, calls for them to be removed from the market. As I recall, it was an early French group in 2021 that was the first to make the call. In the March of 2021, I questioned vaccine safety in the Texas Senate Health and Human Services Committee. But then we came in strong with the World Council for Health in 2022, Association of American Physicians and Surgeons in 2023, but in no place could one find a summary of all of these professional organizations, many of which are physician-led, evidence-based, and consensus-driven. And surely they, provide a different viewpoint in opposition to views held by the US CDC or the Australian governmental agencies, the New Zealand agencies, European medicine agencies. So, of course, now we have dissenting views. But what was the evidence for these societies to make such a bold stand against COVID-19 vaccination? And so we put this all in the paper, sponsored by the McCullough Foundation. We are greatly assisted by Dr. Mary Talley Bowden in Houston, Texas, who has been keeping track of the lawmakers who, as part of their platform, have said the COVID-19 vaccines have to go.
Yeah, I see that she's still fighting the Texas Medical Board for her credentials at the moment.
It has been a terrible set of events for this highly qualified surgeon, Mary Talley Bowden. Everybody should follow her. She's on MD Breathe, is her moniker on Twitter. She trained in medical school at the Medical College of Georgia and then went on to Stanford University for ear, nose, and throat training. Very, very highly trained surgeon who was in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, flooded with patients who needed treatment for COVID-19. So she followed early treatment protocols and found success, saved patients. And in fact, she was sued by Methodist Hospital and then the Texas Medical Board. She has now been caught in a tremendous series of legal events where the medical board is essentially trying to punish her for speaking the truth, for taking care of her patients and fulfilling her fiduciary responsibility to patients and innovating with early treatment protocols. And so she clearly is on the right side of history, and we'll have to see where this shakes out. But I have to hold her up as one of the most courageous physicians and strongest physicians that I've ever come to know.
So this report is very wide-ranging, and I noticed that it also covers evidence of DNA contamination in the mRNA vaccines.
This is a greatly concerning development. Now, multiple labs have opened the vials of Pfizer Moderna and found simian virus 40 DNA fragments. Now, SV40 is used in the production, the plasmid production of the DNA that can be mapped to the nascent messenger RNA to produce the product. And so what ramps up this internal cellular organelle, its ability to produce a ton of it, is a pro-proliferation, pro-cancer, a proto-oncogene activator called simian virus 40. Simian virus 40 actually causes cancer. But used in a E. coli model, provided it's filtered out with the digestive enzymes, DNA ACEs, it should be safe. But we found through the polio vaccine campaign in late 1950s, early 1960s, that polio shots were contaminated with SV40. And sure enough, now Pfizer and Moderna contaminated with SV40 above the limits of safety in terms of quantity and then the size of fragments. And the fragments are the SV40 promoter, enhancer, and origin of insertion. So this is very alarming because DNA fragments are readily taken up into human cells and are incorporated into human cells. So there's a great concern here that those who took the COVID shots could be set up for cancer months or years later. Such a concern that the Canadian authorities have been notified, the Australian authorities. Florida Surgeon General Joe Ladapo has formally written the CDC and US FDA. And Joe, this is astounding. Not a single government agency has opened up a vial of Pfizer and Moderna to inspect what's in it in terms of quality and purity.
Yeah, I noticed that David Speaker was analysing Australian and Canadian samples and found very concerning levels of DNA contamination.
Speaker, Schoenig, McKernan, all of their results agree. When we see multiple labs finding the same thing, it's called external generalizability. It means that almost certainly it's real. The SV40 contamination, in addition to messenger RNA by Pfizer Moderna, almost certainly impairing DNA repair, and then the spike protein and its theoretical effects in a paper by Singh and colleagues, impairing the P53 and BRCA tumor suppressor systems, means that there's multiple ways in which Pfizer Moderna could cause cancer. And this has been summarized in a paper from Portland, Oregon by Anguis and Bustos. So I have to tell you, the term turbo cancer, the observation that cancers form quickly and are on an accelerated course among the vaccinated, I think that concern is very well justified.
Also note in this study that it's been expressed that the trials for the vaccines, such as Pfizer, for instance, haven't been run properly. They've been unblinded. The results weren't reliable. Could you elaborate on that?
You know, in two papers published by Mead and colleagues, I'm the senior author in the International Journal of Vaccine Theory and Practice. We outline the flaws in the clinical trials of the COVID-19. We're talking about the initial large registrational trials, and Pfizer and Moderna had the same protocols. So first off, the primary series of getting Pfizer or Moderna or getting placebo, it was given shot one, and then there was a period of time before shot two, about 2 to 4 weeks. Well, the first observation is during that 2 to 4 week period of time, nothing was counted in terms of, getting COVID-19 or having a complication. Nothing was counted during that period of time. And then the counting started after at least 2 weeks after the primary series. So the violation here is called failure to follow intent to treat principles. So in randomized trials, we always use intent to treat principles, meaning from the time of randomization, everything counts in both groups. It's the only way to fairly evaluate things. And what it turned out is those who took Pfizer and Moderna had an explosion of cases of COVID-19 in that period between shot one and shot two. Another key criticism is that the trials were not effectively blinding, because those who got the real shots, their arms got swollen, sore, painful, they got fevers. those who got placebo really didn't have any effects in the arm. So it was obvious to people in the trial who got the real thing and who got placebo. Well, why does that matter? Well, those who got the shots believed that they were protected from COVID-19. Why wouldn't they? So if they had minor symptoms, they didn't come in to get a swab, a PCR swab. Those who got the placebo were worried, and they were far more likely to come in and get an evaluation. So that differentially affected the outcome of SARS-CoV-2 infection. What they should have done is they should have tested both groups equally at time points all the way through to capture all the infections. That wasn't done. Another major criticism is that the follow-up was too short. So after the primary series is completed in a month, there's only 2 months of follow-up. Well, what happens at month 3? Does the vaccine wear off? What about 6 months? No one wants to sign up for a shot for 2 months of benefit. But yet what happened is what you suggested is after that 2 months, then the participants were encouraged to everybody take the shots. So they essentially, eliminated any way to have extended follow-up and have a placebo group. And then finally, I think the problem that's most concerning is, the primary outcome was SARS-CoV-2 infection. That's just getting a runny nose, essentially. And there was no primary endpoint assignment for COVID hospitalization and death. And that's what people really wanted to take the shots for, is to prevent hospitalization and death. And what we outlined in the Mead paper is that there were deaths that occurred specifically in Pfizer that were reported late to the clinical trials program, and they were not included in the FDA briefing booklet. So when the FDA reviewed this, the cutoff date for the briefing booklet was mid-November, and the FDA looked at this at December 10th, 2020. Well, it turns out some people died who received Pfizer between mid-November and December 10th. It wasn't included in the briefing booklet, and it wasn't in the core slides that they reviewed at the meeting. Now, I've been on the FDA panels, and I can tell you the first question, the panelists ask the company is, were there any more deaths since the time of the briefing booklet production? But no one on the panel asked that question. Pfizer didn't disclose that more people had died, and nobody at the FDA asked. So when we actually count those deaths now, more people died with Pfizer than placebo in the original trials of just 1 month of primary series and 2 months of observation. So if all that was on the table December 10th, 2020, and I was a panelist, or if I was in charge of the FDA, the Pfizer never would have been approved to begin with. Not safe for human use. Risk of excess death, there was a signal that it was too high. And sure enough, now in the Holscher paper that we started with in the journal Science, Public Health Policy, and the Law, Joe, in that paper, there is a table, and it cites 12 separate studies indicating that COVID-19 vaccines increase mortality. They don't save lives, they actually cost people lives on a population basis.
That's terrifying. So I don't want you to speculate too much any further than you feel comfortable, but with the new administration coming in with Trump and possibly Kennedy if he gets elected, what do you think may happen legally to some of these players? I know that Anthony Fauci has been pardoned, but there are other players that could potentially be held accountable, and he could potentially be held accountable further back than the time period that he'd been pardoned for.
Well, let me just say it's been shock and awe from the Trump administration. People have been blown away. We're up to 300 executive orders, sweeping orders, like pulling the United States out of the World Health Organization, which is, a relief as these impending pandemic treaty alliance and international health regulations essentially were seizing control of U.S. healthcare. We're out of that now. We have banned government censorship of private citizens. We've banned gain of function research funding from our agencies, which is huge. Now we need to ban the gain of function research itself. We have seen sweeping changes. Our public health agencies have had a communication ban right now to kind of shut them down until we can get control over this. There's now been a notice of a massive number of government employees who are going to either lose their job or take a buyout, and essentially a sweep through government agencies like we've never seen before. It's going to be a massive reduction in workforce, which would be great since the workers have not been in the office for years since the onset of the pandemic. I've been to Washington several times, Joe, to testify. It's empty. The hotels are empty. The businesses are empty. The government workers haven't been back to work in years. And now we bring in Robert F. Kennedy, who today, January 29th in the United States, is up for Senate confirmation. And there is really been a whole series of plots by big pharma, big food lobbyists, philanthrocapitalists like Gates, even Kennedy's own relative, who's been co-opted by big pharma to spoil his confirmation. So today's going to be a pivotal day. Many people will be there. We've got a close associate with the McCullough Foundation who will be in the gallery right there in Washington to report back to us. And this is all in the setting of President Biden in his last few hours in office giving a preemptive pardon to Anthony Fauci, the former NIAID director and senior White House coronavirus advisor. There's books written by Peter Breggin, by Robert F. Kennedy, and by Senator Rand Paul outlining the crimes that Fauci has committed. And let me tell you, an innocent doctor or scientist, an innocent man would not need a preemptive pardon. So he is guilty by the fact pattern. He's implied to be guilty with this preemptive pardon, which goes back for 10 years, Joe. And the crimes, as we lay out in our book, Courage to Face COVID-19, are fraud. Fauci was part of a co-conspiratorial team that defrauded the world on the origins of SARS-CoV-2 and then tried to cover it up. And then the second one is even more important: mass negligent homicide. People lost their lives because of Fauci via two mechanisms. One was the suppression of early treatment of COVID-19 with McCullough protocol and other evidence-based effective multi-drug protocols in high-risk patients. And then also they lost their lives from the COVID-19 vaccines. And Fauci was, again, part of a broad multi-agency team to this day that has not reviewed the mounting deaths that have occurred after COVID-19 vaccination and has not issued any type of safety warnings regarding these products in fatal syndromes like heart damage, myocarditis, cardiac arrest, blood clots, stroke, and so much more. So, Joe, there couldn't be more news in a matter of just a few hours or a few days over this week and the previous week, and hopefully people in New Zealand can join us in on the Kiwi rocket to get an update and, in a sense, get a grip on this snowball of information that's coming really right at us.
What do you think about Donald Trump's allowing AI to prescribe medication? That seems very concerning to me. That's a very bold move.
Joe, I think so many people have listened to that presentation. Remember, it was Trump with Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, and the CEO of SoftBank and OpenAI. And they were presenting the Stargate project, which is a private public collaborative on AI. And so, the top line view here is that we are in an artificial intelligence race. Everyone recognizes that. And, an American-centric view would say, listen, Trump, putting America first needs to be close to these companies. And, we need to lead in the AI race and not, fall behind to China. It's a competitive race. So I think Trump's doing the right thing there. Now, when Larry Ellison and the project was presented, he picked a healthcare scenario. And that is someone with cancer could have an AI assessment, and that would lead to an AI-generated personalized messenger RNA vaccine. I think that was the scenario that you point out that people had so much trouble with. And I think it's right. So let's break it down. I think AI can clearly help in cancer care. Cancer is the most complicated of all the areas in medicine. Various tumors and cancers have complicated staging classifications and clinical pictures, multiple different types of scans, CT scans, PET scans, MRIs, ultrasounds, diagnostic histopathology, molecular biology, assays, genetics that are done. Everybody's at a different stage in disease. And in many ways, each cancer is individual and unique. And so AI could assemble all that and help us greatly. And then from there, AI could help in selection of really what's the best approach. Some cancers, the best thing to do is just have surgery, get it out and be done with it. Others will need adjuvant chemotherapy, radiation, monoclonal antibodies, small molecules like kinase inhibitors. And there's so much there that AI could help us out with. AI could almost certainly, lead to some novel therapies. Specifically, I think monoclonal therapies. And, one of the big breakthroughs has been called immune checkpoint inhibitors like Merck's Keytruda. But this idea that it would do, AI would lead to a 48-hour jump to a messenger RNA vaccine alone is something that I can't see for the following reasons. About 38% of cancers hide from the immune system through what's called immune checkpoints. So that's the reason why we don't have vaccines for cancer right now, because the cancers hide. So even if we were to give a messenger RNA vaccine and it would amplify, let's say, some tumor proteins, which is what Moderna's current experimental messenger RNA product does in metastatic melanoma, it would still need to be given with a checkpoint inhibitor. In this case, Moderna's using Merck's Keytruda, which is very toxic. And right now, the safety results from that combination chemotherapy trial using messenger RNA, there is considerable toxicity. Now, these people have deeply invasive metastatic melanoma or widely distant metastases. And there is a modest effect there, but it's not great. There's no declaration of people being cured of cancer. So in summary, I think the Stargate project is very exciting. Medicine is amenable to AI. And it just probably wasn't best to have someone like Larry Ellison, who is a very successful person in big tech. He had about a semester of pre-med, I see, in college. We needed an oncologist to explain this to us. And, as a preview at the Wellness Company, we've held a roundtable with a lead oncologist that'll be coming out in a few days. And he's going to explain to us really how AI can help in cancer care. And also that expert agreed that messenger RNA vaccines are very, very unlikely to play a role in cancer care in the future.
That's good. I see there's a paper out talking about how mRNA vaccines affect the tissues in the heart and damage them.
Disturbing sets of findings. Now, Crossan and colleagues has found Pfizer, Moderna physically in the heart. Bowmeyer has stained for the spike protein. It's been found in the heart. Every study that looks for messenger RNA using a reverse qPCR or stains for the spike protein finds it in the human heart. Nakahara and colleagues have found that virtually everybody who takes the shot has an abnormal positron emission tomography or PET scan. A normal heart takes up free fatty acids and uses that fuel, but those who take the shot, the heart tends to prefer glucose as its fuel. That's a diseased pattern we see in chronic ischemia or mitochondrial dysfunction. It means cellular respiration has gone wrong in the heart, whether or not people feel it or not. Now, we don't know how long these abnormal heart scans persist in the vaccinated, but it was nearly 100% of people who took the shots in that paper. And those who had a sore arm even had worse cardiac PET abnormalities, suggesting they may have gotten a stronger dose of messenger RNA vaccines. And then finally, Schreckenberg and colleagues has shown direct cytotoxicity. Putting Pfizer Moderna directly on top of a human heart cell causes that heart cell to become dysfunctional. It doesn't contract normally. It doesn't depolarize and repolarize normally. So the COVID-19 vaccines have not passed basic preclinical cardiotoxicity studies, and yet they've been broadly used in a substantial proportion of the world's population. They are toxic to the heart. They do cause myocarditis. The myocarditis does cause cardiac arrest and death. That entire chain of logic now has been demonstrated in the peer-reviewed scientific literature.
A lot of officials in different countries are saying that bird flu is a danger to us. There's been a lot of culling of poultry, which is going to affect our food supply. I know that the McCullough Foundation did a report on the bird flu. So what are the key findings for you out of that report?
We've been greatly concerned with the worldwide bird flu outbreak. In a paper in the journal Poultry and Wildlife Sciences, first author is Holscher, McCullough Foundation published that the current strain of bird flu called Clade 23446 emanated from the U.S. Poultry Research Laboratory in Athens, Georgia. They were performing serial passage experiments trying to get this strain of H5N1 bird flu to pass from mallard duck to mallard duck. And one of the ducks must have gotten out because the first cases were found in waterfowl and even sea mammals and other mammals in and around Georgia. And then it spread from there. Now, the USDA group was working with Dr. Karakoa at the University of Wisconsin School of Veterinary Medicine and Dr. Ron Fouché at Erasmus University in the Netherlands. So you'll see their work on gain of function research, and both of those groups have tried to, over time, their stated goal is to get bird flu to jump into mankind. And the whole purported goal of doing this is to, quote, get ahead of nature with vaccines or other forms of countermeasures. But it's a very dangerous form of research. So it looks like the current strain and the current outbreak started late 2020, early 2021. And the mallard ducks are spreading it essentially all over the world. It's largely in the United States because the ducks take several seasonal cycles to ever kind of make it over to Europe. But it is happening. And we expect bird flu to hit New Zealand and Australia and the rest of the country as the waterfowl spread it. Now, because the host range has been expanded, which when this happens, typically the viral virulence is reduced, and that's the case. It's a much less severe infection than it used to. So the mallard ducks really don't get sick at all. They carry it easily. The chickens or poultry don't get very sick, and it can get into cows and even sea mammals, but they're not particularly ill. When humans get it, it's typically a case of pink eye. And in a paper by Garg and colleagues in New England Journal of Medicine, the farm workers are getting it because they're ordered to do culling. And as you pointed out, culling is a ineffective, useless biosecurity measure where they kill the healthy chickens to, quote, eradicate bird flu. Well, it's destined to fail because the mallard ducks keep flying around and reinfecting the farms. And so at the University of Arkansas Bird Flu Summit, they estimate that only about 10,000 birds have died of bird flu that they can even see, although they're not adjudicated. There's been no veterinary adjudication of actually any death. And the culling in the United States has resulted in the loss of 10 million healthy chickens. So at yesterday's first White House press conference, led by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, and boy, Joe, this is a very impressive show from a 27-year-old woman who was absolutely spectacular. Everyone was so impressed, including myself. Someone asked her about the cost of chicken and eggs. And she said the reason why it's going up is because the government has ordered 100 million chickens to be killed and not used as poultry. and the farmers are getting subsidies for doing this. And it's happening all over the world. And so I'm glad this was brought to light. We should allow humans and animals to get natural immunity. There's only been one U.S. death, and that was in a man who was older. He died about 3 weeks after being test positive, and no details are given on his death or his hospitalization. He may not have died of bird flu. He had some dead birds in his backyard, but he wasn't, a farm worker. So we don't know what that is. No mention that he received early treatment. Now, early treatment involves nasal sprays and gargles with dilute povidone iodine. In fact, they're preventive. And then the early use of oseltamivir, Xofluza, or the two other antivirals and secondary antibiotics. So I'm not sure he got any care at all. Historically, bird flu has had almost a 50% human mortality rate, but that's in Southeast Asia, where very undernourished, rural Asian farmers sleep with their chickens, have huge exposure, don't have any access to health care. And in 2005, New England Journal of Medicine paper, where some of the deaths were reviewed, I think all the deaths would have been preventable with early treatment. So as we sit here today, bird flu is not a threat to humanity. It's not a threat to actually animals or livestock, and that we should allow natural immunity to set in. We can use iodine-based nasal sprays and gargles in our farm workers for protection. Wellness Company even has a contagion kit that offers the drugs that would be needed to treat it early. And we should not in any way usher in a new genre of vaccines, bird flu vaccines. U.S. has the CSL Seqirus vaccine as an antigen-based vaccine. Joe, healthy, normal people died with that vaccine in the clinical trials. It looks very dangerous. The European Commission has bought millions of doses of this. The Finnish have already started vaccinating humans with this, a very, very deadly proposition. And then right behind that, the U.S. government has paid Moderna $590 million to develop messenger RNA bird flu vaccines, which will look like they're wholly unsafe just from the outset of the design. And now Gates Foundation with CEPI, its organization, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovation, is working on self-replicating messenger RNA bird flu vaccines. So, my advice to my patients and my colleagues is stay far away from bird flu vaccines. We can get through this easily just with a little common sense. And keep a watch for bird flu to hit New Zealand, Joe. I bet it's going to happen.
I'm sure it will. Whether it actually happens or not, someone will make that happen, I suspect. I shouldn't say that, but I suspect that if it doesn't happen naturally, someone will nudge it. If only to sell vaccines, that's my opinion anyway. Is there anything else that you would like to touch upon that you think New Zealand
we've covered a lot. We've covered a lot. We've covered this kind of phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to move into justice phase, Joe.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, there's more and more court cases in the United States won by people who declined the COVID-19 vaccines based on philosophical, medical, or religious reasons, and they lost their jobs. So now cases are being won in court. This is encouraging. One of Trump's executive orders was to restore all the military members who lost their jobs, their positions, essentially had their military careers destroyed. He's restoring all of them with back pay to the very beginning, if it was done on the basis of declining the COVID-19 vaccine. So, there really is some wind in the sails of justice, at least on the issue of, people fighting these vaccine mandates, declining vaccination. Many did it, Joe, to save their own lives. They knew the vaccines weren't safe. So that justice phase is going to be very important. We're greatly encouraged by the Trump administration thus far. We've given a fair review today on today's show. Everyone should be staying tuned to what's going to happen. Now, under Senate confirmation, depends on the chairman or woman, but it can be extended beyond a day. And I expect that's going to happen with Kennedy. They're going to start at 10 a.m. Eastern in the United States, and they're not going to be done by 5 p.m. It's going to extend. I bet it's going to extend for several days. There's only been 5 cabinet members confirmed so far, and I think, honestly, they were relatively easy compared to Kennedy. None of them had big lobbyists and big, financially fortified lobbyist groups going against the nominations of like Marco Rubio or what have you. But for sure, that's going to happen with RFK. So this is going to be a very interesting watch. Again, McCullough Foundation will have an associate there. Watch Children's Health Defense. They're going to have live video coverage. That's going to be a great source. And let's hope Kennedy gets good advice. Now, remember, Kennedy is a lawyer. Yep. So he doesn't have much experience as an expert answering questions. I'm a doctor. I've got tremendous experience. I've been in, federal court cases, dozens and dozens of cases in Senate and congressional testimony where all I do is answer questions. Answering questions is much different than asking the questions. Kennedy is used to asking the questions as a litigator. Answering the questions is a completely different skill set, completely different art form. I think his answers hopefully will be short. It will be to the point. And, I think he should not agree with any words that are put in his mouth. It's fine to disagree and then have the senator follow up with a question of why do you disagree? Many times they ask what's called a compound question, where they link many, many assertions in a question. And unless one agrees with the entire question, say, listen, I can't agree with that. And I think the demeanor will really matter. Is he going to be fighting, and is he going to be, obstreperant, or will he be respectful and conciliatory? So much to see in this. But anyhow, it's been great to come back on the rocket and see you again. So many developments. Is there anything for our audience, our U.S. audience, about updates in New Zealand that you want to share with us?
We've got a gene technology bill. It's already passed its first reading. And what it's going to do is New Zealand's pretty much got very limited GMO, especially our food. There are concerns from GE-free New Zealand that it's not going to have the accountability towards people who are doing the gene editing that it should be. And it's very wide-ranging. It covers food, it covers medications, just about anything you can think of. But the problem is that there's a lack of accountability on people if they make a mistake. There's a lack of oversight, and a lot of New Zealanders object to it, but I think that the public is not informed enough. There is a campaign that's running to fight it. My next show is going to have John Karapiat from GE Free New Zealand, who's going to discuss this matter in depth on the Kiwi rocket.
Yeah, it sounds like great work is being done. Along those lines, on Courageous Discourse Substack, I have a paper out about messenger RNA being stabilized now in plant vesicles. And so it could be messenger RNA can be stabilized essentially in a vitamin capsule for over a year. Another way of introducing genetic material to the body. So we need comprehensive legislation and protections against genetic therapy, which could, come via injection, by oral capsule, or even through the food supply.
I totally agree. I personally think that we were designed with a really good ecosystem where everything fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. And I think it's my personal theory that over time, perhaps centuries, people's lives and access to stuff and various conflicts have happened, have gradually taken people away from where they originally were. And now we kind of live an artificial life where we're injected from stuff from day one that is no good for our brains, mercury, other heavy metals, high rates of autism. And then we go into an education system which is designed to give people enough skills to work, but also make people very obedient, used to following orders, suppression of personality. That's my opinion. And I think that GMOs, while they might have some benefits, I actually think that the natural foods actually have, allegedly, foods were more nutritious in the deep past. There were more varieties of foods. I didn't know corn didn't just come in yellow. It comes in a variety of colours, but I never see that on my dinner plate. And I know you can get that kind of thing here, but I just think that diversity, I feel like nature offered us natural medicine. Like even the Maori people had natural bush medicine, different botanicals. And I'm wondering how much of that is being lost or in danger from GMOs because we don't know enough about what's available out there that could potentially be medicinal and be brought in to the fold to give treatments. I know that homeopathy is being looked down upon in New Zealand, and a lot of people have had benefit from homeopathy. And I think if people don't agree with homeopathy, that's their call. If they prefer allopathic medicine, that's their call. But I know someone who was treated by an allopathic doctor like yourself, who also was into homeopathy, and he got struck off the medical register for treating people with homeopathy, having a hyperbaric chamber, and his alternative therapies because people power did not agree with what he was doing. And I think people can take risks on themselves. They don't need to be wrapped up in sewing on mittens to say, we're going to protect you from yourself and these things that we don't consider to be good. How about just letting people do what they want? And if something happens to them, it's on them. That's what I think.
So many good points there, Joe. We are seeing, I think, a new, really growing collective viewpoint that people want health freedom.
Yes.
They want the ability to make their own choices and are willing to take responsibility. And, there are a range of offerings from allopathic medicine, naturopathic, integrative medicine, holistic, and then, of course, homeopathic medicine, and that we should be open-minded. The pandemic has opened our minds to the idea that the medical orthodoxy, or certainly government agencies, are not going to provide the answer, certainly not in the setting of an emergency. So, I'm an allopathic doctor, and I watched my profession let down the world in acute COVID-19 illness, and sadly, people died, and people suffered unnecessarily. And we're seeing this now in the long COVID syndrome and post-vaccine injury syndrome. Do you know not a single government has a therapeutic guideline or therapeutic approach to help people with these conditions? We're 5 years into the pandemic. Don't wait for your government to clear up long COVID for you, Joe. So that's the reason why I published McCullough Protocol-based spike protein detoxification. Now the most widely used approach to handle the problem. The problem with long COVID, Joe, is the spike protein, the spine on the surface of this virus. This is what the spike protein is. It gets stuck in the human body. Yeah. Multiple studies show that after the infection and after vaccination, the vaccine installs a genetic code for a massive amount of spike protein. It's found in the brain, the heart, all the essential organs. Paper by Perry and colleagues from Australia demonstrated that readily. And what we know now is the human body can't get rid of the spike protein on its own. It lasts in there for months to years. It needs assistance, and McCullough Protocol-based spike protein detoxification is the combined use of medicinal-grade nattokinase, bromelain, and curcumin, along with some minor ingredients. The best-in-class product is called Ultimate Spike Detox, offered by the Wellness Company, and you can buy this now in New Zealand and Australia, I believe, through Amazon. So, Ultimate Spike Detox, virtually everyone who's had COVID, who's had the vaccine, probably should undergo at least a year of using this. If well tolerated, then indefinitely. And we have found consistently that patients improve. Actually, yesterday I got a wonderful testimonial through Twitter. And let me tell you, I put my name on it. It's copyrighted my name for a reason. It means I'm accountable for the scientific principles here. And Joe, if it didn't work, my box would be lit up with people who are angry and complaining. Instead, it's just the opposite. I get good vignette, good, personal accounts of how people are improving. All the published studies we can see right now are falling in line. Thank goodness for McCullough Protocol-based spike protein detoxification. The world has an approach now to handle this phase of the pandemic and what it's done to human health.
And thank you. I know how hard you work for your patients as a cardiologist, as well as being a scientist bringing enlightenment and good medical practices to people. And I know that you will continue to do that. And it's not easy. It's not easy when you're in there for the long haul. 5 years you've done this. Thank you so much. And things will get better for you. It'll be people like you who will ultimately be looked upon with these were the great people who actually helped, who were on the right side of history, who saved lives, who battled those who weren't saving lives, who had to take a lot of flack and a lot of unfair things happening to them, but ultimately they triumphed. So thank you so much, Dr. McCullough. We'll leave it there.
Thank you, Joe, for those kind words. Make sure you follow me. Go to my professional website, petermcculloughmd.com. That'll take you everywhere. McCullough Report on America Out Loud every 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday. America Out Loud Pulse, where I answer the world's questions with Malcolm. That's every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern on America Out Loud. Everybody should sign up for Courageous Discourse Substack, the leading medical Substack. You get graphical abstracts. All the citations that I've given today are in Courageous Discourse Substack. It's free. Sign up. You get an email every day. And then, of course, visit McCullough Foundation, McCulloughFND.org. That's your way to support our efforts in investigative scholarship, media, justice, and in public policy. Joe, I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. Thank you so much for having me on the Kiwi Rocket.
Thank you.